Hola YouTube, I'm Andy and you're watching InfoTek channel. Today I want to talk about tech layoffs in 2023, whether or not it's getting harder to get a job in IT post-pandemic versus before pandemic. And I'll give you my personal experience, how I passed a big technical interview with Amazon Web Services back in 2016. Yes, 2016, it's been a while, but I'll tell you what, I've been interviewing a lot of people in the past 7 years, and I can tell you for sure the procedure of hiring new talents did not change a single bit. The same questions are being asked, and basically companies are looking for the same qualities as they've been looking in employees for the past 20 years. Now, let's see what's actually happening with these big technology companies that end contracts with their IT employees. Is it really that bad? And what it means for us if we are on the job market right now. According to Crunchbase News, more than 118,000 workers in US-based tech companies have been laid off in mass job cuts so far in 2023. And basically, it's a continuing trend. All right, big tech companies keep ending contracts with existing employees. And another big tech news platform called Computer World says we are facing an uncertain global economy and slowing revenue growth. That is why technology companies have picked up the pace of layoffs in 2023. So they are ending contracts with their existing employees. But here's an important piece of information for you to follow. Check it out.
Pretty strong still, despite what we're hearing in these headlines.
Employees at tech giants like Amazon, Meta, and Spotify face mass layoffs. More than 150,000 tech workers were laid off in 2022, while in just the first month of 2023, more than 68,000 were laid off, according to the website layoff.fyi. Those numbers are likely higher because most layoffs don't get reported.
So if you consider unemployment as a whole in the tech industry, it's actually gone down, whereas unemployment across the board has gone kind of up and down throughout these couple months. Things have been a little bit shaky, and overall these tech layoffs have not been showing in the unemployment numbers. But the reason it's going down, actually, according to an expert I spoke to, is because people are finding jobs or they're going to other industries, but they're not sitting there and collecting unemployment for the most part.
Even with all of these layoffs, the tech workforce is larger now than it was just a couple of years ago.
It's hard to say how it'll affect the tech economy. I think it's worth pointing out, though, that the workforce is still much bigger than it was pre-pandemic. So even with all the cuts that, say, Amazon has had, their workforce is still 90% bigger than it was in 2019.
So what this lady from USA Today says is basically, although job cuts happening and contracts end, new contracts appear, and it's still more people working for big tech companies right now versus pre-pandemic. So new jobs are being created. You are still fine. It still boils down to two facts. First, you need to be ready for your interview. And second, you need to be slightly better than competition to get a job. So you need to know how to do your job. This is one thing. But separately, you need to know how to pass the interview successfully. And here we go. This is my story, how I passed this AWS IT interview. And I hope my story will help you figure out how to beat competition. So I'll talk about general mindset when you go to the interview. Interviewing with multiple companies at the same time and keeping your options open. Also, we will talk about the importance of knowing the company that's interviewing you. And then we will talk about questions that AWS engineers and managers asked me through my interview process and how I responded and how it brought me to the actual success. And now, my personal story of success. That's what you've been waiting for. So we'll cover questions and answers, but let's start with the general mindset I mentioned before. It's called a mindset of abundance. That's what you have to actually practice on your own. It boils down to the fact that you, first of all, you understand that this is not the only position or company that would work for you. There should be a clear perception that's coming from you, that if this particular company is not hiring you, you will find another job and another company quickly. It will actually make you look more desirable for the company that's interviewing you if they know that you have other options. So when I went for that final technical and management interview with AWS, I had this mindset of abundance. I kept at least 3 more threads going, and I've been getting closer and closer to the final stage of the interviews, and I've been actually relaxed. And people that interview you can actually read it from you. Back then, I didn't actually know that the competition was huge, and thank God I did not research on that particular part. So only on my first day on the orientation, I've learned that there were 57 people per one position when you try to get through a cloud engineer position with AWS. It was cloud support for databases. But I always research on the company itself before I go for the interview with them. And with Amazon Web Services specifically, I found out that they have some very unique and peculiar leadership principles, some sort of guidelines, and that gives you hints of what this company is actually looking for in a candidate. So your responses to their questions should reflect that you are aligned well with these leadership principles. So I Googled AWS leadership principles, and I found more than 10 or 12 of them, and I focused on 3, 4, so I would remember them well, right? And built my answers around these 3 or 4 leadership principles that I memorized. And it was customer obsession, ownership, learn and be curious, and invent and simplify. So what it means exactly, if it says our company is obsessed with customers, so we go far and beyond for the customer. We do even more than customer actually expects from us. So now when a manager from AWS or engineer asking you a question, in your answer, you should show that in the past, you've been doing a lot for the client, right? Like you've got to show this customer obsession. If a leadership principle is learn and be curious, then in your answer, always give them a pointer that in the past, you've been studying something after hours. Even when your work is done, you are still working on some kind of certificate or new technology that just appeared, right? And you want to be up to date and you work on your basically advancing your career, advancing your knowledge and grow as a professional. That's the very important point. In any company, right? Not only with AWS, but basically these leadership principles are very similar from one big tech company to another. So if you know leadership principles from AWS, you're basically going to be good with your answers in any tech field company. Now let's talk about actual questions that I've been asked within my AWS interview process. So it was almost 4 hours interview on premises in their office. And the way it works, it's like in 45 minutes increment, and then you get 10 or 15 minutes break. And next person or even people might come to your room and continue the interview. So they keep changing, but you stay for 4 hours. After that interview, I could barely walk, actually. I was so much exhausted. But they've been doing a good job to giving you the small breaks and offering you a beverage, coffee, water, whatever you want. I typically declined all that because I wanted to stay focused, right, and show dedication. So I've been ready for each next person whenever they come into office to continue interview process. Try to understand that all questions that they will ask you at technical interviews are going to be divided into management type of questions and purely technical questions. Or it can be even something in between. And do not think that technical questions are more important. For example, if you know Python or T-SQL or Java, you will get a job. No, you can be 100% sharp with the technical answers. But if your management type of question and answer is not aligned with their guidelines, right, or principles or work ethics, you will not get the job. That's a very, very important point to keep in mind. So of course, I was asked the question why I left my previous company and why I want to join AWS, right? So read your job description when you go for the interview, know why you picked this particular position. All right, and typically your answer and what I was giving is that partially job description is very well aligned with my previous experience. And what is not aligned well with my previous experience is actually what I want to do in the future. This is where I want to go with my career in the next 1, 2, 3, or 5 years, right? If my position specifies knowing Python or having development skills, you can say, well, I'm not a developer yet, right? Maybe I don't know Python very well, but I'm taking a small course right now on Python and Visual Studio. So in the future, I'm planning to be a developer because I know it's the highest level in IT industry, all right? When you know development process and you know architecture in the cloud, it's something that is high end. So you may say, I don't have much experience right now, but I'm planning to get my cloud architect associate certificate by the end of this year. So it shows them that you're dedicated, you constantly grow, and you are learned and curious, which is aligned with AWS principle, with one of them, right? So it's going to be a good answer. Another management type of question that most likely you will be asked at IT-related interviews. It's conflict at work and disagreements with management. Think about answers. Because if one word is not aligned with their guidelines or work ethics or principles at this particular company, it will be grounds for you not to get the job. All right, it's very, very important. So in these conflict situations, they gauge what kind of person you are. And again, it's not technical, but it's extremely important because everybody at these big tech companies know that they can teach you technical skills and a new software, new development process, or new tool, but personal qualities cannot be taught. If you are conflicting by nature, they cannot fix it. If you disagree with management decisions, with corporate decisions, it cannot be fixed. And now it doesn't matter if you're very good at doing your job. If you are a person that is difficult to work with, they would probably decline your candidacy. You will not get the job, all right? So in my response that if I ever had conflicts with management, I would say, yeah. So of course, do not try to avoid this question. Don't say, I've never had conflicts, because it's gonna look weird, right? You've been working for 5 years, for 3 years, for 10 years, and you never had a conflict at work. They would not believe it, right? Because unfortunately, even in IT industry, even within a team where people have like higher education and they are not, in most cases, conflicting by nature, still there will be some times when like developers would try to push, some kind of Tableau expert to troubleshoot an issue, right? And they push him too hard at times because it's been months and issue is not resolved, right? So they become more aggressive, and in response, this Tableau engineer or expert will become kind of hostile towards them too, right? So these conflicts happen, and now they want to see how you handle it, right? So in your answer, you show that if it gets out of hand, you always come to the last resort of like bringing it up to a broader discussion, to management, to site lead, right? You don't try to fight people at work yourself. All right, make management aware of the conflict situation and show that you just want to find a solution. You're not complaining, all right? You're not trying to fight back. You just want something that is good for the company, all right? And issues and conflicts are not good for anybody, not for you, not for other team, and not for company in general. So when I responded, I said, yeah, I'm not conflicting by nature, and in my environments, in previous environments, I didn't see too many people that would be, difficult to work with. But there was one time when my co-worker, he had some family issues and he was not very well in his health, right? And he was not able to perform or do his part of the work. So I brought this issue to the attention of our management because I knew that person probably needed help, right? And I was ready to help him too. But I wanted to do it alongside with management because they know better, they control situation better. They knew how to maybe give him extra PTO, paid time off, so he can sort off his health issues or family issues, right? And I've been kind of in between. I noticed that, right? And I helped this person through bringing the issue to the management, and now manager knows better how to handle this situation, how to help this person, right? So you're showing that you are helping. You don't try to fight or resolve conflicts with force or by yourself talking to that guy, right? You bring it to a bigger audience. You bring it to management. And then if management says, yeah, so Andrew, can you help this guy with these tasks, right? Or maybe he's going on vacation. Can you take an extra load? And I say, yeah, I can take some, right? Or we can spread it through the team. We will help this guy, right? And we're waiting for him to come back. So in that answer, they will say that you take responsibility, right? You're attentive, but you always make management aware of some kind of issues on interpersonal level, or when someone is not feeling well or cannot really work. When they asked me about disagreement with management, I gave them this particular example. I said, at one time in my previous job, in my previous project, we had issue in production. The workload was increasing, and I, as a DBA, knew that we need to increase the size of the instance. We need bigger instance with more CPU, more memory, and more power in general. Right? But when I created a presentation explaining why we need to increase the instance size, management was against it. And that was a huge problem because I knew the workload is going to grow, and then the instance will maybe reboot because it's out of memory, right? So we will have a downtime in production. So I've been kind of pushing towards my solution. In the end, management discussed that issue, and they actually disagreed with me. And they decided to go with fine-tuning the workload. So in this case, you've got to understand that management, they have better vision of what company needs. Plus, they take into account the increased costs, right? For buying 2 times bigger instance, the company will need to pay 2 times more. And sometimes these expenses are huge. So as a data engineer, you might not see it. So show in your response, and that's what I exactly did. In the end, I realized that management knows better, right? They don't see only technical part. They think bigger, they see bigger picture. And I told them that although I was 100% sure that my solution is better, I actually committed to management decision. That shows that you are a person and a technical employee that is easy to work with, right? Although you can be disagree at times, you will commit to the corporate decision. So I told them in the end, I start working on fine-tuning the workload, and in time, maybe in 6 months or 1 year, the company still came back to my solution when it was more relevant for the company. All right, but don't, in your answer, do not say that you fought with management or with corporate decision and you got your way. That answer will not get you the job, all right? Phrase it in a way that you disagreed with management, maybe you had a conflict or your solution was better, but in the end, you actually committed to management decision because you understand that management knows better. Next question they asked me, and most likely you will have this question in your interview process too with various companies. They might ask it this way. In my case, it was this way. Do you think that working as a team member is more important than being independent? Or do you prefer working as a part of a team, or you want to be solitary, all right, unsupervised? Again, this is one of the questions where there is no one is better than another. You don't pick sides. You've got to say that you are efficient and good in both, as working as a team member, and you can also work unsupervised. All right, so in your answer, say, I can do both. I can be independent and take responsibility and own the case, right, or technical issue, and also I'm a valuable contribution to the team. So in my case, the manager who interviewed me, he had that very distinct beard and a baseball cap with some kind of music band on that cap. So I picked up on that vibe, and I knew music a little bit, so I gave him an example. So I said, yeah, I can do it as an independent employee, right? And also I understand the importance of being valuable for the team. For example, there is a music band Metallica with 4 members, right? And if you take them separately, like independently, they are not super good, right? Like the vocalist is not the best vocalist in the world in Metallica. If you take a guitarist who plays solo guitar, he's also like average, right? And so on. And bass guitarist is not like a superstar in bass guitar playing world. He's not like Billy Sheehan, right? So I gave him this example. But when Metallica plays as a team on stage, they actually aligned, they kind of point their effort in the same direction. That's why they become very strong and powerful, because they are going in the same direction. They feel each other, right? They support each other and complement each other on stage. So that's how I see teamwork, right? So you don't have to be a rock star. No one really wants to work with a cocky, very independent guy, right? You've got to be able to own the case, to express and show ownership for the issue when you resolve it. But at the same time, it's very important to be a valuable member of a team. And I gave that example with Metallica, which this manager liked a lot. And I'm pretty sure that when they discuss my candidacy later on a debrief meeting, they call it debriefs, right? I'm pretty sure that this manager actually was pointing out to my quality and my response to that question. And he said it was aligned with our leadership principles. You know, he can do both, and he understands the importance of working in a team. And in IT industry, it's rarely just one person who solves all the issues. There is networking team, there is big data, there are databases, there are like EC2, RDS, and so on. So you never solve an issue by yourself. You've got to be valuable in that teamwork environment. Then I got a question that I didn't know the answer to. And that is very important part in your interview process. From time to time, you will hear a question that you absolutely have no idea how to answer. And very often on these technical interviews, they ask questions that they don't have straight answer intentionally. They just want to hear the process of your thinking, how you think, how you try to resolve something that you don't have resolution for. So my question was like this. It was a networking guy that worked for a networking team within Amazon Web Services. And back in 2016, almost no one really knew about load balancers. And there are different types, like networking load balancers, for example, right? Or something that spreads load into, like, helps the databases grow if more workload is introduced. So he asked me exactly this. He even had a whiteboard, and he put on one side a laptop, and he says, this is you, this is your client laptop. You are connecting through a website to a database. Let's say you are connecting to Amazon.com and you want to create your profile. But here in the back end, it's more than one database that writes information down, that stores information. So let's say it's two databases. And in between you and backend databases, there is a load balancer. So you connect through load balancer. It directed you to one of these databases, to one of the two databases. Then you enter your name, you maybe enter your address, phone number, and then it's asking for sensitive information. Let's say your social security number. And you're hesitant. You don't want to provide your social security number, right? So you leave, you close this application, you leave, you research more, and then you learn that it's safe to give your social security number to that website. So you come back and you try to log in back to account you started. What problems you can experience if you have this load balancer in between you and databases? I did not know the answer to that, but I framed my answer in this way. I said, well, by the way you ask me, I understand there will be an issue, right? So that shows him that you are critically thinking. Yeah, if he's asking about what kind of issue it can be, you can sense that it might be. You might not really know what exactly is happening with these load balancers, but you understand that there will be an issue. That's already a starting point. That's already 50% in answering the question, all right? So you understand that there might be an issue with that. And then I've been trying to ask questions countering him, right? Do not make it interrogation. Don't just try to keep talking, all right? You can ask additional questions, trying to understand, trying to figure or guess the answer. That's a good approach. They like that. So I've been asking him, so it basically matters if I leave, right? If I close my session, I've been rephrasing. If I close my session, then load balancer kind of loses me. And I could not really pinpoint what the issue would be. But in the end of the interview, I actually even asked, I said, oh man, you know what? I will not be sleeping well tonight. I will research on my own, but please tell me what exactly the issue will be with these multiple databases between me and database with the load balancer. And then he says, well, technically there is no real answer. It can be smart load balancer or regular load balancer. If it's a regular one, then it might not direct you back to the database where you started your application. All right, it might connect you to a different database which does not have your previously entered name and address and phone number, right? So you will have to start it all in new. But if it's smart load balancer, it will know by your IP address how to direct you to the previous database where your information is stored. So, but he actually liked the fact that I was persistent, I was asking questions back, and I've been trying to get a hint. Like I've been giving him at least something, at least showing that I try to critically think and solve the issue. At least try to show that you have problem-solving skills, and that would be enough to get a job. And final question that I was asked while going through AWS interview, it was again technical, and they asked me if you type in your browser amazon.com or ndpol.net, some kind of domain name and .something, right? You're looking for a website, for example. What is actually happening behind the scenes? All right, so here they wanted to see if I understand what DNS is, domain name service, and what's happening where the search engine is going to pull up a specific information. So you've got to explain that domain name, like Amazon, right? It's stored somewhere within domain name services, right? This is where the search engine is going to pick up on that name. And basically DNS is a converted IP address, right? It's just people will have difficulty to memorize IP, right? Because it's like 4 sections or maybe even more separated by dots, and it's a lot of numbers like 172.10, something and slash something, right? So you've got to show in your answer that you understand that domain name is a substitute for memorizing IP, all right? It's assigned to a specific IP address. That's how engine finds that website or service, all right? And then you say that in the end it's .com or .net or .io or .ru, right, is a container that stores these domain names. So basically, the more graphically, the more your answer is graphically clear, the better the perception would be, right? So don't go into very much technical details, but try to graphically or with a clear example, like from real life, explain how it works. Same way if they ask you about IPv4 or IPv6, so you say IPv6 is like more contemporary approach of storing IP addresses because population grows, like electronic devices and computers that we use grow exponentially. So IPv4 just exhausted the range of IP addresses, and IPv6 was introduced with a huge improvement in range of these IP addresses. So virtually it cannot be exhausted in our lifetime, or maybe even lifetime of our planet. So this is how I approached my interview with AWS and how I answered these basic questions I provided above. But of course, questions may be different, right? Just think more about general mindset and management type of questions. At least this side should be super sharp, all right? With technical stuff, you may say, it's not on top of my head, I'm not too familiar with this and this service or with this and this technology, but I'm willing to learn. And in most cases, you will still get the job. All right, that would be it. I'm Andy, and this is InfoTek channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.